Hey there, welcome back to our channel. It's me, Amber. If you're new around here, this channel is all about helping permanent makeup artists by sharing all of our tips and tricks for technique and business, and really just lifting the veil on all of the secrets of our industry so that everybody can succeed. So if you're new around here, we'd love for you to subscribe. Go ahead and hit that subscribe and that like button, and you can turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our notifications when we post every week. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you some of our favorite tips and tricks for combining powder brows with microblading. So if you are looking for some ways to improve your combo brows, or if you're a microblading or a powder brow artist and you want to find a way to improve or combine those two techniques, this would be a great video for you to watch. As you can see, we've already started the powder brow process for this client. So when we do combo brows, we like to shade first, and we are a couple of passes in. The artist that's doing this work is Ashley. She's one of our artists at the Brown v. Columbus location. So I will tag her information below in the description box in case you guys want to go give her a follow. So as I mentioned, we like to shade first. So we're a couple passes in. Typically, we are always going to do a really soft, misty powder brow look. And to achieve that look, which I really believe is what most of your clients are going to be looking for in 2020 in the near future, we use a single needle. So I want to zoom in here so you guys can see the nice little pixels that are created with every light brush. And I think that is so natural looking, and honestly more natural looking than microblading. So that is our preferred method. The brand that we like to use is Quadrin. We like a long taper and a small diameter. So as you can see, this is how the pixels look when they're put into the skin. Super natural and pretty. The next thing I'd like to share with you about our technique is the hand movement and the method of insertion of ink into the skin. So that's super critical. You have a lot of things going on, one being the needle, the next thing being your hand movement. So whip shading is what you're going to use to get these pixely results. So it's super, super light, a whipping movement. The needle is not being dragged back and forth into the skin. It's just super light and airy, and that's what we teach in all of our powder brow classes. On that subject, I do want to take a second and just really caution you against something that I've seen a lot in our industry, which is learning how to do powder brows completely on YouTube or on the internet without taking a really, really good class. It looks easy, but it's actually really hard to get soft, natural, delicate results. So please, please, please consider really taking a good class before you try to do this on someone. So now that we have the powder brows nice, soft, and natural, you don't want them super dark because we're going to be adding strokes. So we want it to look nice and airy. We're going to go ahead and go in and create the microblading strokes. So typically when we combine microblading and shading, we're going to work on zone 1 where people like to see those really fluffy strokes. And as you can see from the other brow that doesn't have strokes yet, we leave that what we call zone 1 in the front super light, like almost no color, so that we're not creating really blocky brows. And then we're just going to follow a normal microblading pattern, although I will give you a tip, and that is to leave your strokes a little more spaced out than you normally would, because again, you have shading already underneath there. So two reasons you want to do that. You don't want them to be really blocky, and you don't want to cause too much trauma to the skin when you do combo brows. Some of you may be wondering why combo brows and why not just microblading or powder. Well, first of all, I'd love to do powder brows on everyone because I think they look the most natural, they last the longest, and they cause the least trauma, which is what I want for all of my clients. But some people really love the look of strokes. So if you're going to do strokes, it would be better to do combo brows because it allows you to do less strokes. Strokes cause little tiny paper cuts, which are a little more traumatic than powder brows, which implants color with no bleeding and swelling. So ideally, this is a better way for you to get strokes into your client's skin that is safer, but will also last way longer and look more finished than microblading ever could. Next, we're going to apply a pigment mask to the brow that we just microbladed to really settle into those strokes. It just makes the color look a little more saturated. I will note that usually a pigment mask for powder brows is unnecessary. It doesn't do too much because the color is implanted without actually creating real openings. And now it's time to head on to the other brow and go ahead and complete the microblading on that one. As you can see, the powder brows are really starting to look really nice by themselves. We're just going to try to give some strokes because this particular client wants to see some more hair-like strokes throughout her brow. The microblade tool that we're using in this session is a FEU eccentric. None of us at Brow MV, myself included, are fee trained artists, but I do think that a lot of their tools are really nice and good quality. We are moving away from using this tool. I'll share more in the future about the blades that I found that I really love. But at this time, we were still using the U blade, so that's what you see here. I do want to point out that there is a little bit of pinpoint bleeding happening with the microblading, and that's always a risk when you perform microblading, even on someone with great skin. You want to make sure that your technique is strong, your stretch is strong, and if someone is continuing to bleed through that, then you want to keep an eye on it, but most likely it's just due to their skin and also the fact that she's already had powder brows. So you may recall earlier I mentioned to go really light with that shading because we are creating more trauma when we go in and do the microblading, and you have to be very cautious of that. So very little pinpoint bleeding is okay. You just want to keep an eye out for actual real blood. That is a sign that you're too deep or something's wrong with their skin. So now we're going to go ahead and wipe off what that first pass looks like just to get a look at what the strokes are looking like, and you can see them there, nice, fine, and light and crisp, which is what we want. Although that looks beautiful for a healed result. If your client looks like that after they're done with you, they're probably too shallow and not saturated enough. Even if the depth is correct, they probably need a little more color. So we're going to go in and do another pass on those microblading strokes. Now on your second pass, you want to go in and add color to your strokes, and if you missed a spot, make sure that you get to the proper depth. But if depth is good, you want to make sure that you're only tracing more color into the stroke and not making it too deep. We love to show our clients the progress, especially on combo brows, because it takes a while to build up the shape and the color. And we want to make sure that they're in control and they're involved, and we don't make them too deep for their liking. So always check in and let them weigh in, and they will really appreciate it later. All right, so it's time for the second pass on this second brow. So again, we're going to be tracing those lines and making them more saturated. And then if there are any gaps or spots that were missed, we're going to make sure that we really focus on technique and go over those again so that they look nice and saturated. And we're also being really careful not to create too much depth. And I wanted to take a second and show you guys here up close what those strokes look like, so you have an idea of how spaced out they really are. Because again, we don't want to put them too close together and cause so much trauma that they don't heal great, because that's the purpose of adding the shading. The color between the strokes has ink color as opposed to just their skin color, and it already makes them look bold enough. Our brows are looking great, but we're gonna go ahead and do a little symmetry check with our string. And this is just for us to make sure, really most importantly, that the tops are even. Because we make them look really natural and we want them to look fluffy, sometimes those fronts can be a little bit off. So at some point during your appointment, I would really recommend that you consider just checking in with your symmetry. So I do have a little retention tip here. Absorb fluid during your appointment with tissue. So anything that's seeping out can harden and cause scabbing. If you absorb it a lot during your appointment, it will help with the prevention of scabbing and better retention in the long run for your clients. So here is the final product, and like all our videos, this is just a tiny little snippet of the information we teach our students in our classes, along with all of their post-class support. So if you need help with training, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to help. Thanks for watching.